Okay, welcome to another live recording of the Nursing Home Podcast, the podcast that discovers and discusses areas of the industry that maybe we didn't even realize are part of the industry. In today's episode, we deal with something that is very unique, very interesting, and something that I never thought we would be discussing, frankly, on the show. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing flooring. What does flooring have to do with nursing homes? Why is it important for nursing homes? What's the difference? What type of flooring? And finishings in general, the atmosphere, the environment of a nursing home and how critical that is. So to that end, I'd like to welcome Mati Notice, owner at Ritz Flooring, to the Nursing Home Podcast. So welcome, Mati, to the Nursing Home Podcast.
Thank you.
So, Mati, first of all, thanks for joining us. And I appreciate the opportunity for you being here. Just so that our listeners or viewers can have a bit of an idea of who you are and how you got into such a niche business, something very, very specific. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this? And even before you do that, I just want to thank everyone who's joining us now on Facebook, everyone's joining us now live on LinkedIn. We appreciate it. Thank you for being there and joining us on this journey. But Mati, on to you.
So how I got into flooring was really by accident, but a brief little history. I was started a construction company in '97, and one of the first customers that I had owned nursing homes. He actually do some pink house, but we got friendly. I started doing some work in his nursing homes. I had no idea what I was doing at the time. And in California, they have something called ashpat. I don't believe they have it in other places, but ashpat is very, very, and it's specifically for nursing homes. I started doing work in his nursing homes, was not familiar at all with the ashpat codes and requirements and all that, and got myself in a bit of trouble.
Wait, hold on. What is Ashpart?
Ashpat is it's like the planning department for nursing homes.
Okay.
When you pull a permit in California, you don't go to the city, to the planning department. You go to it's statewide occupational safety hazard department,
Okay, fair enough.
or something, and they're much stricter. Their codes and laws are very, very strict. Most other states, I don't believe have Ashpad, but in any event, I started getting all kinds of code violations from Ashpad and all kinds of things, and that's how I discovered Ashpad. And I started having to learn up about it and read the codes and read the Ashpad books and everything. And then I got to realize that the inspectors, and when you do an Ashpad project, you have something called an IOR. There's an inspector of record, and then there's inspector from Ashpad that comes to check. And I started realizing that they didn't know any of the codes and laws, and they were just making things up on the fly. And these were things that for years they just always said, and everyone always did. But when I actually started reading the Ashpad codes and books, and I started realizing that very few people, including the inspectors, knew the real codes and laws. So actually, I became like somewhat of a Ashpad. Um, I became very familiar with the Ashpad codes, and I became somewhat of a Ashpad,
An expert.
you know, and I've developed a reputation with the code enforcers that basically not to, because I know the code very well. In any event, um, one of the big issues in the nursing homes always was flooring. It was always there was basically two floorings that you could use by Ashpad requirements that could meet Ashpad requirements. You couldn't use any wood. You couldn't use anything that was flammable. There was so many things that you couldn't use. But the two things that basically you could use was VCT, which is a vinyl composite tile, or it was carpet. And both of those were not very good options. Carpet had an advantage that everyone felt it was a lot quieter, it was more homely. But with carpet, for infection control, for dust, for cleanliness, for even stains and all kinds of things, and even pushing wheelchairs and carts, it wasn't a good option. Vinyl was very cheap looking, and if you didn't maintain it constantly, you had to constantly wax it and strip it and wax it, which most facilities had full-time crews just taking care of the vinyl tile.
Mm-hmm.
And some places did it weekly, that they would strip it and wax it. Some did it monthly, but the ones that did it monthly, after 2 weeks, the facilities didn't look good and clean. So that wasn't a very good option either. It was a cheaper option at the moment, but a more expensive option over time. And both of them were not good options. I was at a trade show, I think it was in 2005, and I saw this vinyl plank, which didn't exist in the U.S. at that time. Um, well, Mannington was just starting then to make it. Um, they had it in Europe, they didn't have it in America yet, and they were just getting ready to start. But anyway, I saw this product and I just thought, this is genius. This is brilliant. This would be amazing for nursing homes. It was being, at that time, they were making it for residential, like for cheap, something that looks like wood, but
Mm-hmm.
would be a less expensive option. But I thought this was a great thing for nursing homes. And not really knowing what I was doing, I found a manufacturer in China, and I brought in a container, and I got a few of my customers to allow me to test it out. It was a complete disaster. It lasted a few months, and it started coming apart, started all kinds of things. So, but instead of just saying, okay, this doesn't work, I dove into it like I did with the Ashpat requirements, and I started researching how it's made, what it's made from, what we could do better and make it better, to make it a better product. And it took me a few years, but a few years into it, I came up with a really, really high quality, good product. And we tested that in nursing homes, and we've done very well with it. I mean, I have nursing homes that we installed flooring in over 10 years ago that still look brand new. And it just, over time, it took on a life of its own, to the point where the flooring, I stopped the construction and just focused on the flooring at this point.
Wow. So first of all, that's quite the full introduction. I really appreciate that. And definitely did not want to interrupt as you're on a roll over there, um, which is phenomenal. You didn't give up with the initial failure. You pushed through it till you got to uh, what you're doing right now. Uh, uh, so a couple things. First of all, who would have thought that so much goes into flooring? Period.
Very few people, and surprisingly, I've come to learn that even flooring people know very little about flooring. Most people don't know that much about flooring. They know they like color, they like style. They say, "Oh, okay," and then they look at the price, but they're not very familiar with what they're actually. And it frustrates me a lot when I hear, other flooring people telling customers things that are just completely not true, and I realize they don't know.
So why don't we use this opportunity to educate us a little bit? So I'm one of those people. I'm not even the construction person, but I believe that we spoke about this. That I've been involved in some construction projects in nursing homes, and flooring was definitely a piece of it. And I remember when we put the new flooring in the lobby, and the loud conversations that we had going on from the staff. Down the hallways, they walked into the new space and they just kind of started acting differently, even though the only thing we changed at that point was the flooring. And it's something that we didn't even realize. We don't even realize that we noticed until we notice it. And when you change it, and it's a whole new thing, it like completely changes the whole atmosphere, the whole environment. And people actually, it changes their behaviors like almost immediately once that
Absolutely.
happened.
I don't think there's anything that can boost morale in a facility for both the staff and the residents as a nice, new, clean floor. Um, Even it has more of effect on a building, I think, than the painting. Painting is very important too. Those are the two things that you see when you go through a building. Is you see the paint, the walls, or the wallpaper, and the flooring. But the flooring is what brings a building to life or not.
Now,
And
just to qualify what you just said, uh, you're coming from someone who's a construction person. You weren't, like you just mentioned before, you weren't a flooring person, so you don't have to come to this conclusion that flooring is the thing that makes, the biggest difference. But you came to this conclusion because you actually noticed that this is the case.
I know this firsthand is the case. And one of the reasons, I mean, other than what I mentioned earlier, but one of the reasons I focused a lot on flooring was from doing facilities, and I've done many. I've built facilities from scratch. Um, the flooring was always the biggest issue and made the biggest difference in every project that we've done.
Yeah, that's a big statement. Comparing that, putting that in context of building a facility from scratch. So there's a lot that goes into building a facility from scratch.
Well,
Uh,
absolutely. I mean,
I mean,
both. I'm saying from the finished product. If you did a nice flooring, or you did you had a good designer or whatever it was, you used a nice product for the flooring. That's what made all the difference. And it's a big ticket item also when you're doing a remodel. That's probably the biggest ticket item that you're going to encounter when you're doing a remodel is the flooring
when you say ticket item, you mean expense?
expense. Yes.
Got it. Got it. So let's say we have let's talk specifically to nursing home administrators. So nursing home administrators don't many times are not involved in construction and remodeling. Many times don't have control over that part of the budget, but they have some leeway from the monthly maintenance budget to deal with the flooring. So in order, if let's say you have an administrator who has carpet, or they have uh, the flooring that's not really working out, what can they do? Is there anything that they can do to in-house type of thing without going for a full, re-flooring or however you say that? Is there anything that they can do maybe on a budget that can help them at least begin to solve this issue?
Well, um, as far as with the existing flooring, even sometimes just buying a good machine to clean the floors with makes a huge difference. As far as the facility goes, if you keep your floors clean, it makes a big difference. So, a lot of times people don't have the proper machines that they need to clean their floors, or they don't strip and wax them often enough, and the floors look very dreary and dirty, and that makes a huge difference. But um, there are things like, you know, people can buy vinyl plank and have a maintenance guy, a decent maintenance guy, replace rooms at a time, even replacing a resident room with something that feels more like a wood look, like it feels more homely, and it could boost morale of the residents, and it has a more of a homely feel than an institutional feel. And that's something that could be done slowly. They could do one a month or two a month. It doesn't have to be an entire facility at one time. But obviously, the thing that makes the biggest difference would be replacing the hallways, and that's always a challenge to do, and that's a bigger expense. But
Right.
they could definitely do rooms at a time, or even a dining room or something. Make residents feel more at home. Cleanliness is the most important thing.
Which is interesting. So even with existing flooring, there obviously comes a point where, like you said, you have to replace the aging carpets and everything that goes with it. And sometimes there'll come a point where the only option is to replace the flooring. And then you have to figure out, what's the best way to do that. But even with existing flooring, I mean, I'm sure many people can relate to this. You do strip and wax, and like you said, that's a full time position. Sometimes they're just the people who are the floor tech, right? This is, uh, listen, we do recruitment for nursing homes. We have to find, we have to from the recruitment company, from Quality Recruit, we have to find people. All they do is floor tax. That means they're paying a full salary for people, sometimes multiple people. Their main job is the floor.
I had a lot of facilities outsource that. I had a outsourcing company that I met with to try to do business together with them because I was like, I meet your technicians or your maintenance people in a lot of buildings, and I'm constantly teaching them how to clean these floors and how to maintain them, and you know, maybe I can push business your way. You can push business my way. And the person I met with in the company said, I don't want your floors in my building. So I said, why not? He says, because every time you put floors in a building, we have to get rid of one or two maintenance people. He says, when they have the old flooring, they need stripping or waxing. We have more staff. We make more money.
That's it. So you're ruining their business.
I don't think I'm ruining their business, but yeah, it definitely over time saves facilities a lot of money and cuts down on the amount of staff that they need.
Right. From a facility standpoint, obviously it can be a great arrangement. But if you're looking to increase staffing, which is how an outsourced company will make money, so then less staffing for them is a problem. For the end user, for the operator, obviously it's good. What's the difference
Yeah.
in the maintenance between let's say a typical floor with stripping and waxing and your type of flooring?
Well, this floor you don't ever want to strip or wax. Um, the vinyl flooring in general, the way it's made is it has what's called a wear layer, which is a protective covering over the floor.
Mm-hmm.
What you see is a film. The film is what gives it the color or the design. Then on top of that film is a protective covering. So, and that's a big key that people need to understand when they buy flooring is the thicker that protective wear layer is, the longer the life of the flooring is. Because once you wear through that, the flooring is, you're going to just see black. The film is going to be gone and you'll just see black, which is the color of the bottom of the vinyl. Now, just going back for a second, the reason you don't want to wax is not because it will destroy the floor, but when you do wax, you have to strip it. In order to strip the wax, you have to use very abrasive pads, which will strip away at the wear layer and it will reduce the life of the floor considerably. So that's why I never recommend waxing. There are other products you can use if you like shiny floors. There are a lot of other products that could be used on these floors that will give it that same look, but waxing is not a good idea. In any event, nothing will penetrate that protective wear layer. Like I've had customers that had different type of outbreaks of whatever different diseases pre-COVID, and
Yeah.
I told them you can pour bleach, pour anything you want. They were all concerned that it will ruin the color or this. I said nothing will penetrate. You don't want to leave it there, but if you just bleached it down or use any type of uh, disinfectant on the
Mm-hmm.
floor, so for infection control, for bacterial control, all those things, this flooring is, you try pouring bleach on carpet, see what happens.
Yeah, obviously not on carpet, but let's say other flooring. If you pour, like, it's not magic, obviously, right? So what's
It will discolor it. Like even on vinyl, VCT, it will discolor it because there's no protective layer on top of the floor. It's actual vinyl. The vinyl is on the bottom, and then on top of that is a film, and on top of that is a protective layer. So nothing's going to penetrate. Over time,
interesting?
that protective layer will get worn out, and then the floors will have to be replaced. But another good thing about the vinyl flooring is you can always replace a piece or two, or you don't have to replace an entire floor. But getting back to your original question, as far as we were talking about the maintenance of it,
Mm-hmm.
because basic maintenance, you just need a mop. You need a mop and a bucket and some basic um, detergent or any all-purpose cleaner. um, which, all you have to do is just mop it and you'll keep it clean. Now, most facilities are really big and it's hard to mop. So, you can get one of those machines. As long as you use a non-abrasive pad, it's really easy to keep clean. And if you ever get a stain or some dirt or something, you hit a certain spot with the mop or even a Swiffer. You have a spray bottle, you spray some disinfectant or some cleaner, mop it up, clean it up. In a really difficult case, you might have to get down on your knees and rub it with a rag, but it will come out. There's almost nothing that won't come out. And said you get a machine. If it's a really big facility, you get one of those machines you ride, once a day or once a week. Sometimes clean the floor and you're good to go. So very very little maintenance involved.
Very, very interesting. Um, I'm just thinking now that you have a very unique perspective on this industry, because you come, from a flooring standpoint, like we mentioned in the beginning of this conversation. Something that we almost forget that it exists until it's torn, broken, dirty, or renewed or replaced. But otherwise, we almost forget about it. Um, the question really is: do you have any particular incidents that you've, in your experience going through facilities or your team going through facilities where you were able to see something that was like so obvious from your perspective, where maybe the maintenance team couldn't understand it or the housekeeping team couldn't understand it or even operational type of things, because you deal with, some of the stuff you're dealing with is clinical as well.
I could walk into any facility and tell you if they have a good maintenance crew or not, no matter what flooring they have, but based on the way they keep up their floors. But that's a key. I mean, I tell customers all the time, I'm still looking for a floor that cleans itself. As soon as I find one itself, but customers complain, oh, the floor is dirty. It has to be maintained like anything else. It has to be cleaned, but there's no flooring that's easier to clean than this type of flooring.
Got it. Got it. Very, very interesting.
The thing that always frustrates me, I don't know if that's what you were asking me, and is that people, um, put in flooring and they have no idea what they're putting in, and it's not necessarily only the facilities who a typical administrator or operator. How would they know about flooring other than I guess 2 years of it? But um, what frustrates me a lot is that a lot of the flooring companies don't know about flooring, and they tell things to facilities that are not true. I mean, I can't tell you how many times here in California, like I said, we have the ASHPAD requirements, which are very strict.
Right.
But I can't tell you how many times I've gone into facilities and they just recently put floors and they're not ASHPAD approved.
So
And
in California?
yeah, they have very strict rules about the smoke density and fire ratings and all kinds of things, and people don't know, and they just, oh, it's vinyl, they put it in, and it's residential vinyl, it's not commercial vinyl. And there's a huge difference between residential. Besides the price, there's a big difference between residential vinyl and commercial vinyl. And you know, there are a lot of vinyls, like there are click vinyls that people are using. For sure, here in California, you cannot use that in facilities, and I don't recommend it in any facility because it's a floating floor. It's not meant for high traffic or commercial building. But you know, I meet administrators or operators, and they tell me, well, the flooring people tell me that it's fine and it's good and it's approved, and but it's not. They don't know what they're saying.
So this is interesting. Not to the rest wasn't, but what happens? So someone's an operator. They could spend tens of thousands of dollars installing a floor in one facility, or worst case, 10 facilities, and it's not an approved flooring. Is this are these regulations enforced?
So that's a very good question. Typically, no. Typically, it's not really enforced unless you have other issues. When you have other issues, they make everything into an issue. But typically, if you put in a floor, uh, nobody will come out and ask you uh, for the specs or any of that kind of stuff. But a lot of times, facilities that are doing remodeling and stuff is because they're hit with infractions or whatever. So they're under watchful eyes. So they want to get rid of torn carpet or flooring that's needs to be replaced, and then they replace it with flooring that doesn't is not approved. That's when a lot of times they have issues. But
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
typically enforce that somebody will just out of nowhere come and ask for the paperwork or the specs and stuff like that. But in general, I am one of the people that believe that if you're going to do it right. If you're going to do it, don't put in residential flooring into a facility. It's not going to last. It's not going to, and all these things are always good. And yeah, you might have saved a few dollars until you have a problem. And then once, somebody has a problem, something happens or whatever, and next thing you know, oh, this flooring wasn't approved. Uh, Somebody got hurt. Who knows what?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to go with from a liability standpoint. Somebody trips and falls, a wheelchair gets caught on a tile, and the tile comes up, and God forbid something happens to the resident. And now there's a lawsuit because there's insurance policy and who knows what else is going on. And
Exactly.
they're digging into everything. And then they find out it was regular residential flooring in a nursing home that was not approved.
Exactly.
So that's not worth it.
No, but that's the thing. Like people think that they save money on the short run, but in the long run, it ends up costing them money. Even the fact that they'll probably have to replace it 2 or 3 times, you know, before they would have had to replace the proper flooring. So at the moment, they might have saved money. In the long run, it costs them money.
So I'll tell you the challenges. This might lead to the next part of this conversation. The challenge is that from an operator standpoint, I got 3 quotes, 5 quotes, 10 quotes for my flooring. The prices are all over the place. The one that is coming in is less expensive than the other ones. I know for sure that I'm getting a good price. I don't know what the quality is. I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know if it's approved for everything, even though my flooring guy says that it is. Maybe he knows what he's talking about. Maybe he doesn't. But if I go with an expensive, a more costly flooring, I don't know that it's going to last longer. It might be worse.
Absolutely, and you'll be surprised how many times I see that the cheaper flooring is much more expensive. Like people that are putting that kind of flooring companies that are putting that kind of floors in facilities usually have no idea what they're doing. A lot of times it's like they're subcontracting to someone that's subcontracting to, there's like 5 people in between, and they're charging astronomical amounts for flooring that doesn't belong to the facility. And then you have someone that came in with a decent floor that would work, and the other people were much better salesmen, or they convinced them. But yeah, I tell people all the time that they have to educate themselves. Don't listen to me. Don't believe me. I have ulterior motives. Like I'm trying
Hmm.
to, but do your research. Do your homework. I mean, there's just a couple basic things that really somebody needs to know. And the two basic, most important things that you need to know is the overall thickness of the material, which will affect the how long vinyl over time expands and contracts. It's just the nature of vinyl. The thicker the material, the longer it will take for that to happen, and and the less it will happen. It's
Hmm.
the more dense it is, the thicker it is, the less it will shrink or expand, and the longer it will last. Now, there's companies that use material, which is not as good, obviously, and then but that's already getting to another level. But the basic things that somebody wanting to change their floors should look at is the overall thickness and the thickness of the wear. Like those are the two most important things that someone should look at. And the basic commercial vinyl is 2.5 millimeter thickness. And the basic commercial wear layer is a 0.12 millimeter, mil, 0.12
Uh-huh.
wear layer. So that's, if it's anything less than that, it's residential. Uh, a lot of very reputable companies with good products sell 2.5 millimeter, 12 mil. A lot of them sell 2.5 millimeter, 20 mil. Um, and in my opinion, you don't have to go higher than 20 mil. Obviously, the more the better, but 20 mil is about 0.5 millimeter. Um, so that, in my opinion, is more than enough for a facility. And I, my material that I make, I mean, I make all thicknesses, but personally, I don't make anything less than a 3 millimeter and a 20 mil wear layer, because I wouldn't put anything less than that in a facility.
Well, I think
Hello?
we are. What's interesting is that who would have thought that they're just flooring can be fixed, that there's different moving parts. I mean, the
I don't,
floor is not moving.
you're
Um,
breaking
uh,
up.
well, hold on, we got some technical issues here. Okay,
Yes.
you hear me now? Okay, good, fine. So it's just interesting. Like, who would have thought that there would have been that there is so much that goes into a simple floor. I definitely never would have thought that so much goes into it. And it's also interesting that price can be a reflection of multiple people involved. Like you said, if there's five in between people, then that's going to be reflected in the price. That doesn't mean you're getting anything better necessarily. If anything, just the opposite.
Well,
Obviously, if somebody,
but but people also have to realize the difference in price between a residential material and a commercial material. It's almost double the price. So people go into like Home Depot and they buy flooring and they put it in their facility and they're like, oh well, I got it for $2 or whatever it is. Um, that that first, that's not material that should be in your building. And the difference between that and commercial flooring, it's about 50 cents a square foot. But you'll find other people selling the same stuff as Home Depot, and they're selling it for $1.30, $1.40, whereas something that belongs into a facility is probably in the $2.50 to $3 range.
got it. What about for low traffic areas in the facility?
So if it's a resident room, then I
Right.
I would I would say yes, you could do the 2.5 millimeter with a 12 mil wear layer, basic commercial material. The tricky part, and the reason why I tell facilities not to do that, even though it's obviously a little bit cheaper, is because then the heights don't match when you do the hallway, and then you have reducers. Ideally you would like to have everything one level so that there's no trip hazards. There's no well, trip hazards is the
Yeah. Especially if in a nursing home, the last thing you need is one more way for a resident to fall.
correct.
Well, this is
It's
very,
another
very.
important thing also with the vinyl is
Go
it's a,
ahead.
it's a very softer material. So if there was a fall, they're less likely to get as severely hurt as a VCT tile, which is a harder surface.
Well, well, amazing. So, if our listeners want to learn more about specifically your company, want to learn more about Ritz Flooring, about your, or even if our administrators want to get a little bit more educated about your products and services, give us your website and where they could go to learn more about your company.
My website is ritzflooring.com. They can go on there. There's a info page. If they have any questions, they can send questions. We respond quickly. And I have a LinkedIn page for Ritz Flooring. But the website, ritzflooring.com, will have the best information. Show all
Amazing.
the products that we carry and they can.
Well, obviously, it's coming from somebody who's very knowledgeable in this. And what I like the best about this, and include this in your sales pitch, if you don't already include it, is that you're not a flooring person because you just decided that flooring is your thing. You coming. I like very much the fact that no, you were doing construction. You're doing all areas of the building, and you kind of saw the importance of flooring, and you found that a real solution to a very real problem, in a way that works, that's lasting, is different and better than what's currently being done. So like that's a real solid reason to be doing what you're doing. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, happened on its own.
What did you say?
And it really happened on its own. It wasn't something I intended to go into.
Okay. But listen, you found something and you went after it. And it's also like what you said, like you didn't know about the compliance to all the different building materials. So you learned all about that. You learn, you teach yourself about these different things. Operators are doing this all day, and so sometimes, yeah, let's just get the flooring in. It's always like we're dealing with everything else. We have census, we have staffing, we have COVID. Hopefully, no more COVID, but we have everything else that's going on. Just get it done quickly and cheaply, and I don't want to hear about it. And if I have to deal with this again in 3 years, so be it. Right now you solved my problem, and if it's this month's budget, and I don't have to explain away, something else.
Well,
Where sometimes that's not the right decision.
there are different attitudes towards it, and in all kinds of things. Some people are like, I just want to spend as little as possible right now, and if there's a problem in 3 years, I'll worry about it. Right now, I just need to get it done. And then there's the attitude of some people that they want something that they could take pride in, that will last, that will stay, that don't have to have a problem. They want to avoid problems.
Hmm.
Those are the customers that we're looking for. The ones that want to.
Awesome. Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Mati, for coming on the Nursing Home Podcast. I have to be honest that I was surprised that there's so much involved in flooring. We even went, a little bit later than we expected, and I'm sure there's so much more that could be shared as well. So I really appreciate you sharing so generously from your time. Brian Wallace, just seeing you now. Hi, Brian. A little shout out. Brian's the one who connected us. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.